Hey guys, welcome to my channel. My name is ReadingBear and I hope you are ready for some more stories. And today, we'll take a look at some new entitled people content. If you enjoyed my content, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel and post some bear emojis in the comment. And now, let's dive right into the stories.
The first story is titled, HOA fined me for protecting my home from burglaries. Insists I violated HOA guidelines. No one was more disappointed than me about having to put unattractive burglar bars on my windows. But, after months of watching the homes in my neighborhood be broken into, my wife and I had to finally make the decision to protect ourselves. We're an older couple and I have a few guns, but the last thing I want to do is have to get into a physical altercation with someone who is trying to rob us. My HOA put me in a terrible situation this year when they started fining me $25 a day for having the burglar bars installed on our windows. I sent in an application for them but it was denied and I decided to pursue it anyway, regardless of what the HOA board had to say about it. The letters citing us the little $25 fines were annoying and adding up fast, but in my opinion they were well worth the safety of my home and family. You see, about 15 years ago, my wife and I lived in a different state in an area that was having an influx of crime thanks to the economy. Homes were being abandoned or broken into, cars stolen and vandalism could be seen everywhere in that city. One night, while my wife, daughter and I were sleeping, our house was broken into. We had a big German Shepherd, named Ajax, that alerted us to the invasion and he went into full attack mode and tried to fight off the intruders. I could hear him growling and them yelling as I grabbed my pistol out of the gun safe. As I was running into the living area I heard a gunshot, which was the sound of them shooting my dog. Two of the men had already ran out of the house and the third was bleeding after being attacked by Ajax. I shot into the dark and missed him and he got away. My poor dog was bleeding on the floor from a wound to the front of his chest. He died before the cops arrived and I had a plaque made in his memory for saving our lives that day. I have another dog today, he's a mixed breed named Gunner and is a good boy, but no one could compare to my Ajax saving our lives that day. Anyway, we have obviously moved since then and I don't want to experience another traumatizing event like this. During this back and forth debate with the HOA board about the burglar bars, 2 more homes in the neighborhood were broken into or several more were vandalized. My direct next door neighbor's house was one of them. After his home was robbed, I went to talk to him, and he said that he was going to install cameras and burglar bars too. The HOA really doesn't seem to care about the crime that is happening. Several neighbors and myself decided to go to an HOA meeting, wanting to discuss the issue at hand and see if there was any way to work together to keep everyone happy and safe. The HOA meeting was an utter joke. There were 3 people, one of which sat in the middle with her nose practically in the air. Maybe someone should break into her house just to make her understand what the rest of us are going through. When we began discussing the issues with increased crime, they all seemed to brush it off as something that would pass with time, assuming that once the surrounding construction of other neighborhoods was over that there would suddenly be less issues with breaking and entering. What a load of crap. How can they assume these types of things? Meanwhile, we are all losing sleep at night because there are practically 2 or 3 homes per week that are being robbed in our neighborhood or the surrounding ones. As a matter of fact, the snooty woman in the middle said, "Well, only some homes seem to be targeted. We can't just allow everyone to ugly up their curb appeal because of a few unfortunate incidents." Several people were left speechless at this comment, but then there were others who just straight up started to verbally voice their opinions that she can shove it. One woman even spoke up and asked, "Well, if you're not willing to allow us to make security changes to our homes then the HOA should have to pay for some of the damages and lost property." They didn't like that suggestion, as it implied that they were somewhat at fault for our homes being broken into. While it's not the HOA's fault or direct responsibility, it is still their job to show concern and adapt the rules to protect our homes. In our opinions, at least. That's when I decided to make my move in the meeting and spoke up regarding the issues with the burglar bars. When I mentioned that I added them to my windows even after they were denied, so now I'm receiving fines every day, several residents seemed to become irate at this information. Many people were speaking out of turn and asking how they could charge us for protecting our property, etc. The HOA board seemed to show some nervousness at this point. More people have shown up since the meeting even started and the room was starting to look full. As the three board members glanced around the room with big, surprised eyes, I could tell that this wasn't going to end well. After going around and around, the main woman in the middle stood up, said that there was nothing that they could do to change the policy about burglar bars, tall and unapproved fences or security cameras, and dismissed herself and the others. Clearly, she wanted to leave this meeting as soon as possible before they sent a lynch mob after her. All the residents left this HOA meeting with a sour taste in their mouths, feeling like we got nowhere, because that's exactly what happened. I still received letters in the mail, stating my $25 a day fine, and I even refused to pay that month's HOA dues until they fix this situation. They even mentioned that they had the right to foreclose on my home if I didn't pay my fines and dues by the end of the month. At this point, it was clear, the next step I needed to take was to sue these assholes. I ended up finding a lawyer by the end of the week, and we immediately began putting together our case against them. It was honestly not easy, as fighting an HOA is extremely hard, especially in our state. But the issue at hand was safety, which my lawyer said would be our biggest supporting factor in court. The HOA was prepared as well, having a whole stack of folders and paperwork to somehow prove why I shouldn't have burglar bars. Rolls eyes. Our judge seemed almost put off by the HOA and their attorney immediately. With how much preparation my lawyer had done before the court date, I expected it to be a lot trickier. Maybe this particular judge had dealt with HOAs in the past and didn't like them? Their lawyer started talking about how the neighborhood had been safe and had no issues in months, making the burglar bars unnecessary and unsightly. They even implied that I only put them up to spite the HOA after being denied the right to install them. My lawyer had simple proof and evidence from neighbor statements and news articles showing the increase in crime to be true, unlike what the HOA was saying. It only took a few moments of the judge's eyes scrolling back and forth across the documents before he turned an annoyed stare back towards the defense. No crime, huh? He holds up the paper. I have a statement and photo evidence of crime and robberies provided by his direct neighbor from only 2 weeks ago. And they're not the only ones. Their lawyer stammered momentarily and looked at the HOA board members, who clearly were unsure what to say as well. Those dates are wrong, the HOA woman piped up, earning herself a laugh and dismissive hand gesture from the judge. Well, to me it's pretty clear that your neighborhood homeowners association needs to care more about its residents' safety than their curb appeal. He slammed the gavel onto the desk and awarded us the case. Waiving all of the $25 fees, that had added up to almost $1,300, and also giving us the money I had asked for, which amounted to about $5,000 in distress and lawyer fees. I ended up giving over half of my earnings to my neighbor to help pay for the damages and lost property from his break-in. I was more than happy about winning. To me, it wasn't about the money, but more about the principle of safety. HOAs should be responsible for allowing their residents to adapt to changing situations and add safety measures to the home if necessary. I will always make sure to protect my home by any means, and I'll take my HOA to court to do it. The next story is titled, "Don't Want to Fix the Apartment Like the Lease Says? Let's see how long the apartment can stay empty for." TLDR. Landlords dicked me around for over a year, refusing to fulfill their commitments to the lease. I made sure they spend at least that much time, and 20 times the amount of money it would have cost them to fix my problems, on making the apartment suitable for renting again. This saga literally ended just the other day, and it's a story that's been building for over a year. Holy giant wall of text, Batman. Background. 5 years ago, we moved into a 2-bedroom apartment and got our family started. The landlady is a wonderful 81-year-old lady who was using the apartment as a retirement fund. Before we moved in, we inspected the apartment, and the landlady's son, who was taking care of everything for her, said that there was a slight leak in the wall adjacent to the shower in the bedroom, and it would be fixed before we moved in. We made sure to have that entered into the contract, gave them 12 checks and our deposit, 4 months rent, and we signed, moving in August 2015. Before we continue, I need to point something out. I have nothing against the landlady. Her 2 sons, though, had to have been adopted or switched out at birth, or the father was a real asshole, because there is no way in the world such a sweet woman gave birth to 2 complete asswipes as her sons. To call them cheap would be an insult to the stereotype. The apartment had a 35-year-old air conditioner that worked great aside from tripping the power every other time you turned it on. They chose to send a technician 4 to 5 times before finally replacing it with a new one, And even that wasn't until I told them that if they don't fix it, I'd be underpaying the rent by 10% until they fixed it. So now you know who I was dealing with. The leak. Aside from the issue with the AC, we were happy with the apartment, so we signed our third extension for June 2017 to 19. August of 2017, we received notification from the water company that our water consumption increased by several 100%, which is likely indication of a leak. We called son number 1 who brought over some guy to fix it. He ended up tearing up the floor from the kitchen sink through the middle of the kids' room to the shower, replacing the pipes and closing everything back up. All good, right? A few months later, we noticed that the walls in the kids' room behind their dresser, left corner, and bed, right corner, is completely flaking. Further investigation shows the wall in the dining area and kitchen is in the same state. Instead of leaving some of the floor open for the leaked water to evaporate, he closed it all up, so capillary action took place and the water started climbing, and then destroying, the walls. Now we're obviously worried about mold as well, so we call them again. The only thing to be done in a situation like this is to tear open the floor again and let the water evaporate over a period of 5 to 6 months, so that's what we do. August of 2018 another guy comes, scrapes and paints over the walls and closes the floor. We thought we were done. November 2018 the same exact walls are flaking again. We also noted after we moved, that the wall behind the closet in the kids' room adjacent to the shower and the walls behind the fridge in the kitchen were also in horrible shape. Same issue, same problem, except this time they don't want to spend any more money fixing things, because of the mold. November 2018 we realized there are 2 problems. 1. The cabinets in the kitchen are growing mold due to the leak, and the ceiling in the bathroom is also growing mold. Son number 1 has washed his hands of this, so now son number 2 comes into play. His solution for the mold in the kitchen is to blow on it with a hairdryer, because there's no way they're going to tear out the cabinets to deal with the source of the problem. As for the bathroom, he places the blame firmly on the apartment above us and says that if we want to deal with it, as if it's our responsibility, and not his, we should go talk to them. The upstairs neighbor brought a plumber with a thermal imager who plainly showed they had no leak. Son number 2's answer to all this was to bring a guy to scrape the ceiling and paint over it, even though the guy said it would make no difference. The mold was back through the paint in under 2 weeks. They still refused to treat it. The correspondence. Eventually, we had had enough, and we sent them official notice through certified mail that they were in breach of contract, and if they did not send someone to deal with the walls and the mold within 10 days, we were exercising our right to terminate the lease early. We would pay a prorated rate for every day in the apartment, but we demanded our rental checks and deposit back. Throughout the entire time we tried our best to be polite, yet firm, as it wasn't the landlady's fault her sons are complete and total dicks. The son's response was that if we leave early, they'd keep cashing our checks to pay for the rent, and if we canceled the checks, they'd take our deposit. We consulted a lawyer who said that if they even thought of touching our deposit, we had an open and shut case, as we had reams of photo and text evidence of their refusing to fix things. We sent them a timeline and repeated our offer. They proposed to take the entire last month's rent. We repeated our offer a 3rd time, this time with a threat to take them to court, and they finally caved and agreed to the prorated rent and giving us back our entire deposit, provided we paint the place before we leave. On Friday I gave them the keys and got my checks and deposit back, and recorded them on video saying that they accept the apartment in its present shape and absolve me of all future liability. The revenge. Aside from bending those 2 colossal dickwads to my will, I've left behind several things which will act as my revenge. 1. Even though I painted the walls, I just painted over the flaking paint, and it has itself already begun flaking and peeling. They couldn't say anything, though, because I painted, as they demanded. If they do end up getting new renters, they'll have to deal with the same problems we had. However, they won't get new renters because 2. The mold wasn't dealt with, either in the kitchen or in the bathroom, and even though I painted over it, it was already visible on Friday when I gave them back the keys. 3. We showed every single person who came to look at the apartment where every single problem was and told them to make sure that they got the repairs in the lease before they sign anything. Needless to say, no one even thought about signing a lease once they saw the state of the apartment. 4. Whenever they posted the apartment on social media, we privately messaged everyone who commented. Not surprisingly, no bites there either. 5. We've already moved out, but the next door neighbor knows the entire story, and if he hears anyone in the apartment, he's going to tell any potential renters of all the issues and shit the landlords put us through. He owns his place, so there's nothing the landlords can do to stop him. 6. Since the apartment is their mother's retirement fund, aside from everything else, they'll be forced to support her until they can rent it out again. So far, I've guaranteed that the apartment will sit empty until they fix the issues, as well as the time it will take to fix the issues, easily a matter of 5 to 6 months, as no one will rent an apartment with torn up floors and walls. I hadn't finished yet, though. While I feel sorry for the landlady, her sons really are assholes. I went to a buddy of mine who raises snakes, and he gave me about 20 frozen mouse and rat carcasses. About 30 minutes before they came to inspect the apartment and take the keys, I left them in random areas around the house. Under the cabinets, near the water heater, by the floorboards in the living room, near one of the AC hoses which ran through the floor, even near one of the bath drain pipes. I left them there and in several other places which will begin to stink to high hell, but not for a while. I'm going to make the sons tear up the entire apartment finding all these rotting, nasty carcasses, and none of it can be traced back to me. First floor apartment with a mouse infestation, because the landlords never dealt with the leak/sewage issues. Even if they do suspect me, I've got their video guarantee that they won't come after me in court for any reason. Thank you for listening.